We were back from Chicago for 2 weeks prior to contracting COVID. But I will tell you, kicking heroin in a prison cell, a $500 a day habit, and damn near a gallon of vodka, I would take any day of the week over having what I have. Now, did we have an extreme case? Yes. And as we were talking previous, the four of us, if there would have been a way that we could have got connected with the doctor out of the gate, he probably could have nipped this in the butt right out of the way. But we were able to do that due to our relationship with you, Rob, and the doctor's relationship with you. The average American doesn't have that, doesn't have the resources. And yes, there's politics involved. You're either Democrat, you're Republican. I watch Fox News, she watches CNN. We debate about that. You don't know what to believe, but you have to listen to the experts like the doctor.
Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself, a loved one, you're actively in recovery, maybe a little while or a long, long time, you're going to find all kinds of information, topics related to addiction recovery, really living a happy, successful, sober life at Recovery Today. My name is Rob Hanley. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today, and today I am joined by three of my friends. All three of my friends here have all been featured and are featured in Recovery Today. The first, I think we probably all would agree, and the smartest, is my brain doctor friend. I love having a brain doctor friend, is Dr. Sarasky. He is the only triple board certified neurologist. I just love that way. Would you have to be at a Christmas party? What do you do? I'm a neurologist. And he specializes entirely in addiction medicine as well as mental health conditions. He's the only physician in the whole United States that holds his certifications, his combinations of credentials. And the other two are my very, very dear friends, the dynamic duo of recovery, supermodel and actress, recovery advocate, our former cover, Jennifer Gimenez, and Tim Ryan, the star of the other half of the dynamic duo, star of A&E's The Dope Man, and also recovery advocate, Tim Ryan. Guys, thanks for jumping on here. We wanted to do a little bit of kind of a, this is a last minute, this is actually I think the last piece of content for the whole issue that's coming out. We wanted to do something kind of impromptu, and let me set this up correctly, because there's a few different working parts here. The common denominator of this is C-19, is the Rona, COVID, right? And Dr. Surasky has been featured in the magazine a couple of times. Jennifer and Tim, I will say now, featured on a regular basis, month in and month out. And everybody will know, of course, by now that Tim and Jennifer caught this nasty ass thing. And along those lines, I had contacted Dr. Surasky and I asked him a simple question, which you're going to see in this feature as well. The question that I had asked him was, my wife being a school teacher, she teaches second grade, I wanted to ask him about what his thoughts were as a doctor and an expert in mental health. And I also happen to know that his wife is a school teacher, what his thoughts were on school openings, you know, taking medicine into account, the COVID situation, there might be old or sickly teachers, little kids, transmission, all of these kind of things. And do kids spread this? And I asked him kind of a simple message, text him over a simple message, you know, hey, doc, you know, what are your thoughts on the schools opening up in the fall? And instead of sending me back something, he actually shot me a couple of quick FaceTime videos. And along the way, now I've connected Dr. Surasky to Tim and Jennifer, who sounded like they were on their deathbed, probably wished they were going to die with COVID. And so we all kind of said, well, hey, let's jump on to a Zoom here and kind of talk about all this. So first of all, everybody, thanks for jumping on here today. I guess I'm going to start a little bit with Dr. Surasky just to kind of connect this conversation back to the other couple of videos that he sent over. And then I want to kind of bring you guys in and talk a little bit about the hell that you went through, the work that you were doing, the hell that you went through, that work had to stop, and then kind of what happened after, I'll take credit for it, that I put the two of you guys together. So I guess, first of all, to Dr. Surasky, let's talk a little bit about the videos that you had sent over, maybe expand on them a little bit more, because they're only little short 1-minute videos. And I guess let's start out with the school stuff. And I'll just ask, like, should we have school next year? I mean, in your opinion?
I think the answer to that is pretty clear at this point. I mean, there's no issue which affects people's lives more than this one. I mean, schools must open. There is so much at stake with this issue. Without schools returning to normal, I mean, millions of American parents, they won't be able to return to work. And this goes way beyond academics. I mean, a few weeks ago, I think you saw that the American Academy of Pediatrics, they strongly recommend that schools need to be reopened right away. And they stated the obvious, that children being isolated at home increases the risk of depression and suicide. It also prevents teachers from noticing and reporting things like physical and sexual abuse of children, abuse that's almost certainly going to be more frequent with children unable to leave the home. So for kids, all the risks from staying locked at home are very high, while the risk of coronavirus to them is essentially non-existent. The virus is really, potentially dangerous in the very old and for those who are already sick with other conditions, but not children. We know for certain that for kids, the virus is far less deadly than even the flu.
That's kind of that's what, I am not a doctor. You have forgotten 10,000 times more about anything medically related than I will ever hope to know in any kind of capacity. But all this stuff, I do like to research things and read things and cover things. And I haven't seen anything overall about this. And I don't want to go too conspiracy or down the rabbit hole, type of a thing. But when this started unfolding, I had to kind of think, like, what is this about? So I know that some people say it's political, some people say it's this, some people say it's that. It just doesn't seem like my wife and I have these constant conversations about this. It could have been from mask wearing and things like that. Now I really don't even care necessarily. I want to be able to overall to turn the page. And so to be very, very clear overall about this, what's going on. I spent weeks kind of actually trying to research what it was. I've seen every kind of conspiracy, every kind of thing that there is out there. I have my own opinions, which I'll kind of hold back a little bit right now, other than to say, I don't think everything that we see on the mainstream news is actually right. I will say that. I think that there's a lot of bullshit actually, and things that just don't add up. I will say this: where I live in Washington State, there was some really stupid things that did not add up. Case in point, you could go out on your boat. There's beautiful lakes and water and ocean here, but you couldn't fish. Explain that one to me. In Florida, you could stand on the beach and fish, but you couldn't sit down. And in Michigan, you could buy some things at Walmart, but other things were deemed non-essential. And my opinion of this whole thing has been that the devastation that we were going to have, and now we're having, as a result of shutting down the entire economy, suicides and things like that, was going to be far worse than the number of people, that's just my 2 cents, that were going to die overall of this. I'm so happy to have Tim and Jennifer here today, because I don't want anybody to have any kind of illusions that I, certainly not the doctor, would have, like, well, it's real. Hell yeah, it's real. And we're going to get into what their overall story was. But is there more to this, do you think? I mean, is this bad? Is it as bad overall? And like, what's the devastation on suicides and stuff? What's going on right now? I guess almost for anybody here.
Well, look, there's significantly, by an order of magnitude, way more harm with these massive lockdowns than any risk from the COVID virus. From the massive increases that I've seen in depression, and the statistics are showing the anxiety, depression, suicides, relapses with addiction, spousal abuse, child abuse, the list goes on and on. The risk of COVID significantly hurting anyone who's otherwise relatively healthy or say under the age of 70 is much less likely than even a common cold or a flu. So come on, who's kidding who? There are motivations behind these lockdowns that aren't just necessarily in the best interest of patients. Now, I would like to say that I know that Jennifer and Tim did get, the virus and they were having a lot of symptoms and it really was affecting them. And I don't mean to minimize that, but they, they will be fine. And they really aren't at risk of severe danger. And that's really what we're talking about here, is that it is possible for younger, otherwise healthy people to contract the virus. It's possible. It just doesn't pose, the benefits don't outweigh the risk of these lockdowns. I mean, I run an addiction clinic. I'm in private practice. I do telemedicine all across New York. And just the devastation from the mental illness and addiction that's been happening. I know Jen and Tim talk about in some of their interviews on TV. I've heard them talk about the pandemic within the pandemic, and that's what this is. It is brutal pandemic of skyrocketing mental health issues and addiction relapses due to the lockdowns. All the healthy routines that people have to live their life and stay sober and help their mental health have been shut down.
So I have to say this really quickly before it really is your turn. I'm going to steal it for one more second because I'll forget this, and it's really important. This month we ran a feature from a beautiful young lady and who was raped every single day in her own house. Think of it now. She's in her 30s, I think now. From the time that she was 7 years old until the time that she was 14. By her two older brothers, next door neighbor, and a cousin or some shit, okay? Raped. And I go, how was it like? Oh, it was every day, okay? So think of the dad, the creepy ass uncle, the whoever it would be, okay? And she was saying she got a 4.0 in high school and in school because she's like, if I could get out of the house, I stayed out of the house. I was a cheerleader. I was this, I was that, I was the other, because it was safe. And so I think about now about how many, teachers would turn in, like they'd say, well, this kid's got marks, or the kid told me this or that. Now there's no third party. And so in my mind, particularly after having interviewed her, I'm like, the abusers and the victims are locked up basically all day long. And the abusers don't have a job to go to. Like, they're bored out of their minds. So I think it's really, really, really like we've got people unnecessarily really in hell, I think.
I mean, it's a shit show out there right now. Excuse my language. It's really scary. It's a really scary time. First and foremost, to minimize, I don't want to minimize the fact, when I remember texting you, this is real. It's not a hope. It's not like a flu-like feeling. Yeah. And we didn't, it's crazy that we were talking to the doctor and you about this earlier, is that we went down for the count. Like, it brought us to our knees and it kicked our ass. Thank God. We're not going to die from it. We're getting better.
Felt like you were, though, probably, right? Felt like you were.
What was scary was feeling that I wasn't afraid of dying at that point. I was afraid that I was going to stay like this forever and not have a sense of relief of how I feel right now. That was scary.
You have to understand, Jennifer and I are two people that last August were in 28 different states in 30 days. We live on airplanes. We travel the country speaking, doing interventions. We don't know where we are, who we're in front of. We were back from Chicago for 2 weeks prior to contracting COVID. But I will tell you, kicking heroin in a prison cell, a $500 a day habit, and damn near a gallon of vodka, I would take any day of the week over having what I have. Now, did we have an extreme case? Yes. And as we were talking previous, the four of us, if there would have been a way that we could have got connected with the doctor out of the gate, he probably could have nipped this in the butt right out of the way. But we were able to do that due to our relationship with you, Rob, and the doctor's relationship with you. The average American doesn't have that, doesn't have the resources. And yes, there's politics involved. You're either Democrat, you're Republican. I watch Fox News, she watches CNN. We debate about that. You don't know what to believe. But you have to listen to the experts like the doctor. I'm not an expert in COVID, but I can tell you what it did to us, and it kicked our asses, the fatigue, the headaches. And I'm a guy that's up at 5:30 in the morning every day. I go to bed at midnight. I'm on the phones. I'm working. I'm ADHD. I'm go, go, go. This had me knocked down. And yes, we're going to get through it, but the millions of people that you go back to that are stuck at home, A, with COVID, the fear, the anxiety, the mental health, the suicide, the alcoholism, the drug addiction, the domestic violence is through the roof. And a majority of these people don't have resources to get the help.
And now
how long were you down? How long for everybody? Because I know, because I've been texting you. How long was that?
Today is exactly 3 weeks for him, and for me, it's been 24 days. And the last 4 days, because of the doctor and being on prednisone, he feels 75, 80% better. I feel, I'll say between 50 and 60% better. But you know what? When we felt the next day 20% better, doctor, I would have taken that for the rest of my life compared to what I was feeling like a week, 5 days
ago. And you didn't get anything. You guys didn't get anything from another doc. You didn't see another doctor.
We had a Z-Pack. We had Z-Packs.
And an inhaler.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And everything,
and
the regimen Jen puts.
Presentin and like natural stuff, vitamins and stuff.
And a lot of Pedialyte and Gatorade and water.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that gets COVID and puts on three more pounds. And I really didn't eat much, so.
But, I want to talk about the other half of what you were talking about. I also think that with the pandemic, within the pandemic that's occurring, is also there's a lot more, and I talk to a lot of people via text, Facebook, and friends, phone calls, whatever, people who are normies, as we call them in the recovery world, people who don't battle with alcohol or drug addiction or mental health issues are going through depression. And people who are getting COVID are getting very depressed and filled with anxiety now after getting COVID. Because I'm like, when I start going out in public, you better stay 6 feet away from me. And I was already anal retentive over OCD, like sterilizing queen prior to that because of my underlying issues. Now I'm going to be even more vigilant over that. But, and I know that people are going, because I've been reading about people feeling so much anxiety, and they're normal people or people that just got sick, unfortunately, to corrupt the coronavirus. Plus, you have people who are in fear of not working and all this stuff. And then you have us addicts and alcoholics and people who have mental health issues like depression and everything else that there is. It's crazy right now. I mean, and it's not a political thing. This is a global thing. And, we just, to not make this about a political thing and make it about, the human race. Let's make this about the human race.
There is something else going on, though, because you could actually set this thing up. I have said from day one, you could build a moat around every single old folks home and stuff like that. And it's funny because I wanted to have the contrast of you, my close friends that are that went through this horrible experience, the doctor, and then kind of my own thought is like you could safely, or I guess I would ask you, that's my thought is, you build a moat around the old people and then you can open stuff back up because it seems like it's worse, like all the shutdown and the business losses, and there's going to be unemployment. People have no idea what's coming down the pipe in the next few months.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I'm not 20, even though I'd like to say I'm far from it. I'm in my early 40s. He's in his 50s. We're not seniors yet, and we had, I have the acid reflux, the runs, sorry, keeping it real, nonstop. We have an invisible monster, I call it, kicking my torso. It's not happening anymore. Pounding on my chest or grabbing my glands. Someone felt like my brain was being squished. And the pain in my bones, he would see me and I'd just fall over flat, screaming, crying. It was in my bones, and the pounding and his headache and the fevers and this and that and falling on the floor. It was just leaning on the walls. It was torturous.
I want to go back to the other direction of where are we at now and what's going to happen moving forward. I have a daughter that's going to be 5 in 3 weeks. And when Jen and I were with Mackenzie, she's in Chicago, we were there 4 weeks ago, she had said to me, Daddy, I miss my friends. I can't play with my friends. They don't like me, because she was in a full-time school 5 days a week. And how do you explain to a 4.5-year-old child that there's this monster called COVID and that's why you can't be around your friends? And she needs to be in school. She needs that purpose and connection. But one of the things we talked about too was when this happened, they kept essential businesses open. Why didn't they have 12-step based meetings or Christian based or NA? Why weren't meetings open? These are essential, and that person that's 60 days sober can't get that 60-day chip, or a year sober can't get that year coin and be around their fellowship, and the relapse rates are through the roof. And yeah, we do Zoom meetings and that, but it's not the same.
And it's hard, you know, because Tim and his daughter and us co-parenting with his mother, the child's mother, we don't know if they don't know if they're starting school yet or not. And like, how do you explain to a 4-year-old or 4.5-year-old or a 5-year-old or 7-year-old that, like you said, the coronavirus, and we started calling it like the yucky virus, people are getting sick, honey, like, and not, you can't really explain to them that when they go back to school, they're not going to be able to hug their friends. Like, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to re-teach kids now, and, you know, it's a really sad time. And
we can't even hop on because Mackenzie will be like, Dad, when are you and Mama Jen getting on a plane to come see Kedzie? Can you come tomorrow? And normally I would. Okay, we'll hop on a plane, flying. We can't do that now because in Chicago, supposedly it got a lockdown for 2 weeks. So everything is up in the air. And now that we're feeling better, can I get on a plane to go do an intervention or not? And that's where I need the doctor's expertise on that.
I mean, we were doing a lot of interventions, and we were getting on planes. And
yeah, what about that, doc?
Oh, sure. So when I prescribed Jen and Tim the prednisone tapering pack, they responded so beautifully to that because they are young and they are healthy, and they can get back to their lives. They can resume their lives as soon as they can. I mean, the only issue really revolves around, being contagious to a vulnerable population. And so that for that, you want to be on the safe side and be isolated for a couple of weeks just to be on the safe side, because again, you guys do travel, you are around other people who could be more vulnerable than you. So that would be the main issue. But for you in particular, I think you guys are very safe. You're on the mend, and you should be back to life as quickly as you can.
Thank you.
Doc, do you feel like, I don't know what's going on in, you're in New York State. What's the plan there? I know here in Washington, like the governor just said, no school, it's all going to be online. What's going to go on there?
Well, it seems that Cuomo hasn't really completely set the tone yet for what's going to happen. I think he's leaving it up to local districts to kind of figure it out. It seems like the younger grades, like K through 2nd grade, is likely going to be fully back, just because it's so established that they are very sick with the virus, and they really aren't spreaders. The viral counts in children are very, very low. There hasn't been one documented case of a child giving it to a teacher, even in schools around the world where the districts were kept open. So K through 2nd, I'm pretty sure is going to be full steam ahead.
So around the world, because there's schools in different countries have been open the whole time. Around the world, there's not no cases that we would know of, that you know of, you're saying, of kids to teach anybody.
I'm not aware of any documented cases where that's happened. And the reasoning behind that is likely that the viral counts in children are very low. So it makes them not super spreaders. I'm sure theoretically it is possible, but it is just, it seems to be extraordinarily rare for that to happen. But as kids get older, adolescents, middle school, high school, it's not as clear, that they can't spread it, to adults. So I think that the governor's, being, very cautious here, and is sort of going to do a hybrid model, or recommend a hybrid model for local schools. But it's really going to happen at the local level.
I got to say that the thing that actually bothers me the most, and then I hear it from my wife, I'm sure every single person, all of you, plus anybody that's watching this now, would have the same kind of thing, is like, I get so frustrated about stuff about where we are. And then I got to just think to myself, like, there's nothing I can do about it, man. Like, there's such this feeling of being out of control, which doesn't play very well to somebody that's had depression or anxiety at all. I can tell you, like, it's, you like to, and then also hope of the future too. Like, the future is pretty kind of scary to me. I've had to just say, okay, well, everything's going to be what it'll be. Why is there no talk about wellness, or about, other than like putting freaking Purell on your hands and wearing a mask, of which there's actually there's actually no requirements of the mask at all. Like, I mean, it could be anything other than this and social distancing. Why are they not, why is there no talk about boosting your immune system?
That's a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's that question for?
You, I guess. Do you, Doc?
So my view on that is that it's actually pretty awful that you really don't hear anything about what I call strengthening the host, because the host matters in the equation. You know, bacteria, viruses, pathogens, you know, they thrive in hosts that allow them to thrive. And so the idea is to strengthen the host, and that's through exercise. And there are some specific supplements that can be very helpful, but exercise is really very key. Making sure you're getting sleep, making sure your body has the ability to reach its potential in how it adapts to the environment and so forth. And we don't hear any of these things at all. What we hear about is stay inside, you know, use masks, you know, antiseptics. That's all we hear about. When in fact, I think the evidence is pretty conclusive that people are much safer to being outside than stuck inside of their house. So I think I think that you won't start to hear a lot of the truth until after November 3rd, because there's just so many other motivations right now pulling the advice that Americans are getting.
I think even outside of politics, any reasonable person knows that's the case, man.
I hope.
You know, Doctor, I would love for you to, and I'm not future tripping, but I know that, you know, after, you know, you get cleared from COVID, you can still have symptoms months on end. And I would love for us to be able to get our immune system back up and healthy and do it the right way. And I'd love for you to give us guidance on that. A little birdie told me that you were doing that to him, Rob, and I'd love to track that and actually do like a follow-up with it, because I think it's important. People need to know that they do need to boost their immune system while they're healthy, you know, not just when they get sick or after they get sick, but I mean, whatever we can do to prevent this, and to, like, you know, knowledge is power, and we need to empower people. And I always say through experiences do we get to talk about this stuff, you know, and experience it and go for it and just be like, you know, because I'm not here to say COVID doesn't exist if it didn't exist, or I'm here to say the truth, you know, and that's what we're all doing, you know, together and talk off, you know, being raw and being real and keeping it, you know, real. So I think I would love that if that could possibly happen.
Absolutely, and depending on how much time we have, we can be you know, somewhat detailed now, and then also
go through some, man. Let's not hold it back. Let's go through some. I will start it out only because I need to insert myself, saying that I love Joe Rogan. And I watch Joe Rogan almost every video he does. And he had somebody on that was talking about this. And the first thing I'll start out with is vitamin D. So we get it from the sunlight. I live in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful up here in the summer, but still, it's just so ironic that everybody's told to stay in their house when we make vitamin D and we go outside. So one of the supplements that I had told Dr. Surasky, I bought it for like $6 on Amazon or something like that. I bought some vitamin D, man. So let's go through some of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, there's a laundry list of supplements that could be potentially helpful. And if you go online and, you know, you could spend, you know, days on end just reading about all different things that could potentially help. But I can tell you what I think really stands out from the rest. So you're absolutely correct. Vitamin D, it enhances the pathogen fighting effects of what we call monocytes and macrophages, these immune cells that are important, really important part of your immune system, and they help decrease inflammation and promote immune response. And the fact is, most people walking around are very deficient in vitamin D. I mean, you know, ideally we're seeing more and more that people who have vitamin D levels of around 30 or possibly more seem to do much better in staving off a lot of the chronic diseases that we're seeing. And yet the average person walking around, if you were to test their vitamin D levels, it's like 10 or 12 or 15. And then you see almost everybody now is getting vitamin D supplementation. So that is something that you really hit it on the head with that one. Another important one is zinc. I don't know if you've read much about zinc, but zinc is actually
zinc every day, every single day I take it now.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah.
Hey,
So do we.
I get about 30 different pills from Jennifer a day. True story. And they're
All
all natural.
vitamins.
NAC and zinc and
A,
What
D, Chris
Yeah.
mentioned, men's health. You get men's health, I don't.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, you guys are proactive, and that's key. And yet, how interesting, here we are talking about all this, and where else do you hear this stuff? I mean, I never hear it. I watch the news. I don't see.
Not
I'm
one.
talking.
Everything they talk about is a vaccine coming.
Yeah.
Like the whole world's going to stop until we get some. And the thing is, too, like honestly, how much has a vaccine been tested? Like, how can they know what it's going to do in 10 years, man? Like, seriously, like we're going to rush warp speed and get a vaccine out? Like everything's going to wait for the freaking vaccine?
So as Jennifer was asking the question, I'll go back to prior to Jennifer and I having COVID and all these interviews we're doing, and we kind of focus on the 9 dimensions of wellness, spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, yada, yada, yada. And we would talk about have a routine, even for the people that are on lockdown. Get up at 7 in the morning, eat a breakfast, work out. But have a routine on what you do throughout the day. Take a walk around the block. Check in with some people. And these are the things outside of Jennifer is an advocate of how much water I drink a day, because I'd rather drink. This is the first time in 3 weeks I've had 2 cups of coffee in a day. But she has me drinking tons of water, Pedialyte, Gatorade, eating healthy. Eating healthy instead of, it's easy to sit around and eat a bunch of junk, but it makes you feel better. And I call it the porridge and stuff she makes me, but I feel better. It's easy to sit around and binge food on potato chips and all this crap, but of course you're not going to feel better. But people have to put forth the effort. And the prednisone was a game changer for us. But we ask questions, we research, but I can see how the average person can get lost in the media and all the misinformation and go down these rabbit holes and conspiracy theories instead of asking the experts. And that's why
you have to be really proactive. I'm sorry to cut you off. I think you have to be proactive in this situation. And I also think that, and I know this from being, anorexic to obese to in between, that if I eat just out of feelings, and emotions, and I gain all this weight, I'm going to feel really bad about myself. I'm not going to feel good. And if I'm being proactive, and they're saying, and doctor, you would know the answer correctly if this was right or wrong, is if you eat healthy, you don't want to be obese. Chances of being obese, you could catch COVID easier. I mean, if there's other things you have to be very careful for, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole as you're talking about, and you feel better about yourself when you eat good. It's kind of weird.
Let's cap the vitamins a little bit and come back to that, because I don't want to go too far. I want to have as much of a block. So vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C, I assume. What else?
Yeah, vitamin C, excellent. And the other one that I think really stands out is there's been a lot of research about elderberry. And I don't know if you've heard of elderberry or not, but there's been 4 randomized studies actually showing that they help reduce upper respiratory symptoms caused by viral infections. If you take they come as lozenges or a liquid, but the lozenge 175 milligrams twice a day has been shown to be effective in general against these types of things. So I would recommend adding that also to the regimen. So these are definitely supplements, but I don't want to underestimate how important exercise is to strengthening the host, the cardiovascular exercise, the weight training and sleeping, all the, trying to keep exactly what Jen and Tim were talking about. Having routine is critical, really critical, especially people in recovery. I mean, routine can be everything, especially early on in recovery. And that is sorely lacking in people's lives right now. I mean, all the healthy things, the gym is closed, the churches are closed, the meetings are closed. I mean, it's but the liquor stores, of course.
Yeah.
And the weed shop, by the way, too.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
So a lot of people keep telling me, because we all have those fake certificates on our walls, like fake doctor. They're like, drink salsa water and chrysanthemum and zinc, and it'll really help. It's like taking hydrochloroquine. Is that true? Is there any
I drink Schweppes, by the way. I did. I'm conspiracy, and so I'm a Schweppes and zinc person, by the way. I will say.
Well, I can tell you that I've been doing the same, but I don't know if there's any evidence to support it.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to just mention one thing. Vaccines are always sold as this sort of panacea by the government. And you have to be very careful, because most people don't even know that the influenza vaccine, for example, maybe it protects 20% of people who get it on a good year. I mean, that's 80% that get the vaccine and aren't even protected. And the side effects from vaccines, although they're touted as extremely rare, it's not quite accurate. They're very underreported. I can tell you firsthand from seeing the damage that I saw, I see in the hospital from vaccine injuries. It's not that they're common, but they're certainly not as extremely rare as the pharmaceutical companies want you to believe. So you really have to weigh the risk and benefit of a vaccine in an otherwise healthy individual. So it's not so black and white. You hear a lot of talk about vaccines now as sort of being like, everything will go back to normal. But if only that were true, and it's not. It's really lifestyle.
One more question.
So the flu vaccine, it's that time of the year that people are going to start getting it. I used to never take the flu shot. And I traveled a lot, different parts of the country for 7 years. And finally, 3 years ago, I started taking the flu shot. And you get sick. It was weird. But I don't know how I feel about it. Should they take the flu shot?
Sure. So, you're going to hear different opinions from different experts. But since you're asking me, I'll tell you, I don't get the flu shot, ever. The reason being is that, first of all, half the time, you get sick just from
I don't get it.
All right?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I never get that, because I'm like, what, you going to shoot flu into me? I'm sorry, man. It's, for me also, I'm always thinking, where's the money on stuff? And so, people say, oh, well, you took polio vaccine. I'm not even anti-vax. I get a tetanus shot or something, but I'm sorry. I've seen too much stuff, and you're not shooting the flu into me, man. I will boost my immune system and exercise and sleep 1,000,000 times over is just my interjection. But actually, you didn't ask me, you asked the doctor, so.
Yeah, no, I think you have to weigh, it's not, everyone likes to take extreme positions. If only everything was so black and white, but you have to weigh the benefits and the risks of each treatment, right? So there are vaccines that I would take because I felt like, there's a high level of exposure for me in that situation, and the risk of me acquiring that condition, that disease, is high. So I'll take the vaccine. But many of these vaccines are sort of forced on the public. They don't take into account that different people have different risks, and the benefit risk ratio is different for each person. So for me, I say, you know what? I'm an otherwise healthy person, thank God, and I don't want to inject myself with virus particles, which could produce an abnormal neurological response, because that's not a natural way for your immune system to learn about a virus. And even if it doesn't, half the time I'm going to get some form of sickness anyway, just by the fact of getting the vaccine. And even if all that doesn't happen, I'm only about 20% protected anyway. So I say no thank you to that one.
Yeah.
So I have a question, doctor. The cases that you had in New York, from when it began to now, how do you see them mentally and emotionally from the aftermath? And also, how do you see your clients that are, struggling with addiction? Are you seeing more cases?
What a good question. I was going to ask that same kind of question. That's a good question.
I have your notes, Rob. Just kidding.
If I understand your question correctly, Jen, you're asking how are my patients doing who are, comorbidly having COVID and have a mental health or addiction problem, or?
It's a two-part. So the client, your patients that had COVID now, are they dealing with the depression or any of that stuff? And then the second part is, what about your patients that you work with that are dealing with alcohol, drugs, and mental health? Are there more cases happening? Are you seeing them relapse more now after the pandemic and the closure and all that? So it's two questions, sorry.
Yeah. So as far as COVID's concerned, and otherwise, healthy individuals who get, mild symptoms and they're resolved, I don't see that it's really affecting their mental health all that much. I think that they feel content that they probably have the antibodies tested and have them, and they feel like, okay, I moved through it, I'm okay, I'm healthy, and I want to move on. I don't see too much, mental health issues when people go through it and they come through the other side. There's a lot of fear in those who watch the news all day long about what might happen to them. But to your other question about addiction and mental health, like you guys mentioned, this pandemic within a pandemic, boy, is that true. I mean, I have never seen such an enormous influx of patients with exacerbations of mental health and relapse from addiction. It doesn't, whether it's just anything from nicotine addiction to drinking more to opiates, all of it has skyrocketed to the point that we haven't, my outpatient program, where I'm the medical director, we haven't missed a beat, not a day, and we do telemedicine every day, and we're having a hard time, I'm working, day, night, middle of the night to try to catch up and help out as much as we can, because so many people are in such bad shape. I mean, think about the idle time that people have now. That's such a trigger for relapse, especially early in recovery. You guys know that. Your exercise is down. The meetings are down. Maybe the sponsors aren't calling people back. Some people barely were just getting into step work, and now they can't. And so there's just so many things that are really such a recipe for disaster that, people need support now more than ever, So you're right.
Let me start to bring this in for a bit of a landing too. And I told you guys that we would just have kind of an organic conversation. I knew that we'd all have good questions, and I'm so glad and appreciative that you would take the time to show up. I like to look for silver linings. Okay. So like in bad things, what comes good? Like almost like, it's just critical for my brain to say, okay, something better is going to come out of this. And kind of on the backdrop of all the devastation that we have, to think, well, what would that be? And so you and I, Dr. Surasky, you were featured the month before last, or I forgot when it is because all the days blur into another now in the middle of the Rona here. But you were talking specifically about telemedicine, and there's a lot of counties where they're really underserved. And with addiction, and specifically your methodology, maybe I'm saying it the wrong way, is medically assisted detox and some things like there. So there's new laws and stuff like that. I want to try to get to like a silver lining in terms of like what can possibly come out of this COVID situation and the lockdown that can be a benefit that actually makes the outcome in the future actually better.
Yeah, so great question. Telemedicine definitely stands out as one of those silver linings. It really was being used, but in certain fields and very, in minuscule ways. But this really projected telemedicine to the forefront. And now the technology has gotten better, the security has gotten better, and especially with fields like addiction and mental health, these are the perfect fields where telemedicine can help bridge the gap between specialists, interventionalists, and speakers and so forth to get in front of people who desperately need the help and can't get to their clinics or doctors. And we've been seeing just tremendous results. Saving lives on a regular basis by using telemedicine. Right now, I've been focusing on telemedicine in Sullivan County, New York, which is a very impoverished rural area of New York that has not one addiction specialist, and people are dying every day. So by being able to use telemedicine, I mean, we've completely transformed the system that way, and now it's going to be here to stay. And some of the laws that were in place that held back doctors
Right.
from prescribe medicines, like, for example, Suboxone, for example, law said that doctors must see the patient in person for even an initial prescription and telemedicine qualified. That law was taken down so that people could get treated right now during the pandemic. And these things, I think, have a very low likelihood of ever being reenacted. So I think this is a whole new world with telemedicine. And while ideally it's great to see patients, individuals in person, you could really do a lot of life-saving through telemedicine.
Well,
that's kind of what shifted with Jennifer and I, because when COVID hit, April, May, June, July, we lost all our speaking events. Now everything but one has been canceled for the fall, but we're getting organizations not only for our events, if we'll do them online, but we're getting treatment centers reaching out and saying, hey, can you guys do a 3-hour Zoom meeting workshop to where Jen speaks for 45 minutes or an hour, I do, and then we kind of answer questions with the client. So we're just having to readapt, and it's not 12-step. We're doing a ton of Zoom 12-step based meetings, but that's how we're parlaying now into the treatment centers, the IOPs, and in some interventions we've had to do online. Once we're feeling better, if we can get on a plane and go do it, we'll go do it. But we're having to utilize technology to still carry a message of hope and bringing in income doing what we do.
Exactly what you were saying too, doctor. Like telehealth, I think is here to stay. And I think that it's the new normal, and we're all coming to a place of acceptance. And at times, we're all just trying. I feel like trying to accept our new normal.
Totally. So let me actually underscore the last part of this, because I think it is really, really, really significant. So in whatever the county was, you say Suffolk County, was that the right county?
It was Sullivan County.
Sullivan County. Okay, so in Sullivan County and 9,000 other counties like Sullivan County in the United States, how many other counties there are, I don't really know, but there's lots and lots and lots where there's not a single person that is a certified licensed addiction specialist, right?
Half, Rob, half the counties.
Okay, actually half. So if somebody needed to get on a medically assisted detox, they needed to get on Suboxone, they're up the creek. They couldn't do anything because they'd have to drive somehow or another. And they're addicts, man. They're gonna have to get somewhere to get to you. Now they can connect with you or other addiction professionals. You can actually interview them, see them, and then write them a prescription, and they can go to the Walgreens or the Walmart with wherever they are. Is that right? And have like a nurse or somebody. So this is for me the significant silver lining, that out of all of this, because how do you clone Dr. Sarasky and all these people and put them in all of these places where there's 50%, there's nobody? Now they can connect with you on Zoom, FaceTime, whatever their, Android or something like that, have an interview, you can ask them the questions, and they can go somewhere locally and get their drugs. Is that right? Because I think it's massive.
That is exactly right. It literally is what you just said. It's the ability to see a patient like we're talking right now and be able to understand what they need in that moment, send the medication to their local pharmacy. They're able to pick it up just as if I was in the room with them.
It's so cool. Well, look, yeah. I want to bring it in. We talked for a little while here, and then we talked beforehand too. And I kept saying, no, we need to start recording because this is good. But this is exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to talk about we talked about everything. Actually, we talked about schools. We talked about what's going on in the pandemic. Talk about boosting your immune system, vaccinations, and then now we're talking about the telemedicine. It seems like on this silver lining is a good place to bring it in for a landing. Is there anything else that I missed? I think we covered a whole smorgasbord, and this is what I wanted. I wanted to bring everybody together in this kind of way. Is there anything else?
Well, we could talk about a million other things, but you hit on the relevant topics of where we're at today in the United States of America, and that there are solutions out there, and there are people that care. And if you're struggling, put your hand up, ask for help. Google any one of our names, reach out to us. we're here to help and we guide and direct. It's
Yeah, and by the way, if you're somebody that's impacted COVID-wise or whatever, you know, you're in here, find somebody that's a telemedicine or something like that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you can get on. What did you get on? Not that I'm prescribing anything, but the doctor can. But what, steroids or something? You know, get better, man. We care about you.
Amen.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
Doctor. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you,
for
guys.
being our
This was
lifeline.
amazing.
Guys, well, thanks so
Yeah.
much. This has been another cool conversational interview here at Recovery Today. Dr. Sarasky, Jen, and Tim, you guys are awesome. If you hang on just 1 second, I'm going to stop the recording.